Hello, and welcome to English for Vietnamese Speakers. I'm Lance, and today we're going to focus on the TH sound. This is one of the most important sounds in the English language, and also extremely challenging for Vietnamese speakers to pronounce correctly. Mastering this sound will greatly improve your English pronunciation. One of the biggest challenges for Vietnamese speakers with the TH sound is that there is a TH in Vietnamese. However, the way it's pronounced in Vietnamese is very different from the way it's pronounced in English. To pronounce TH in English, you need to place your tongue between your teeth. Now, this is going to feel unnatural, and it's going to feel weird, and it's going to maybe even be a bit uncomfortable, because sticking your tongue out in Vietnamese culture is often considered impolite. But you cannot properly make the TH sound in English without putting your tongue between your teeth. One of the other challenges you're going to face is you spent years pronouncing TH in the Vietnamese way. And changing this habit will take lots and lots of practice. You need to train your brain, your mouth, your tongue, and even the muscles to adopt these new mechanics that are going to be strange and that you just have never done before. But don't worry, with practice, a lot of practice, it will become more natural. So how do we make the TH sound? Gently place the tip of your tongue between your upper and lower front teeth. Avoid any lip contact with your tongue, particularly your upper lip. Relax your mouth. Keep your lips apart and ensure constant, gentle airflow without puffing or spitting. As you go to finish the TH sound, you just relax your mouth, slowly and smoothly open it, and pull your tongue back while maintaining a steady airflow. Common issues that you might encounter are spitting the sound. Many Vietnamese words are very stopped or have very harsh endings. This TH sound is a very smooth ending sound. And make sure that, or when practicing, one of the key things you can do to improve your pronunciation is to make the sound long. Practice lengthening your sounds and concentrate on making the appropriate sounds with your mouth. In this way, you will overemphasize the sounds. It's going to feel unnatural to you, especially as a Vietnamese speaker where you're used to sounds being a certain length, usually short, sharp, and cut off. But in English, we don't pronounce every sound the same length. And you can vary the length, you can vary the volume, you can vary the tone of different sounds. And one good way to practice is to practice lengthening the sounds. We'll get more into this when we get into the drill portion. Okay, now let's talk about the TH sounds. There are actually two TH sounds in the English language. The mechanics of both are almost identical. The difference is we have a voiced and unvoiced TH sounds. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying the voiced sound has your vocal cords involved. There's a buzz. This is a common voiced TH sound. But we also have an unvoiced sound. The unvoiced sound does not engage the vocal cords. Think. This is just airflow through the teeth making the sound. They're both important and they both have similar mechanics. The best way to get used to whether you're making the voiced or the unvoiced sound appropriately is to put your hand on your throat. this. If you feel your throat vibrating, you're making the voiced TH sound. If you don't feel a vibration, think, then you're making the unvoiced TH sound. Now, when do you make the voiced TH sound versus the unvoiced TH sound? There aren't a lot of hard and fast rules on this. The best way to learn is to practice, to get comfortable with which words are pronounced voiced and which words are pronounced unvoiced. There are probably some very technical rules or some very grammarly explanations of how this happens. But in my experience, your best way to learn is just to practice the words. Practice, practice, practice. Okay, now let's work on some minimal word pairs. These are pairs of words that sound similar, but that differ only in the voiced versus the unvoiced. We'll work on words that have TH in the beginning and a few words that have TH at the end. And then we'll put it all together with some practice sentences. It's often much easier to correctly pronounce words in isolation. It becomes a much more challenging practice to do this in sentences, because then you're having to look ahead and you're trying to figure out how to pronounce the next word, and you're thinking about maybe stress and rhythm and pattern and other sounds within the word, and you'll slip back into old habits. So the minimal word practice is good to start with, and then the sentence, pronouncing the sentences or working through the sentences can help you further refine your ability to pronounce the TH sound. All right, so let's start. The first word pair, the first word in every pair is unvoiced. The second word in every pair is the voiced sound. So the first one is think. Think. And notice, I really want you to practice lengthening that sound at the beginning. As you're learning and as you're retraining your body and your mind to pronounce TH the English way, it's just going to take time. And emphasizing these sounds, drawing them out, is going to help train your body more. And it will also, as you're working through this, help you be better understood by other English speakers. Believe it or not, I know it sounds weird, it feels weird, but you're going to be better understood if you lengthen your sounds. So let's practice lengthening our sounds. Think. Now, the voice TH. This. This. Focus on a constant airflow. Focus on gently finishing the sound by opening your mouth and pulling the tongue back with a consistent airflow throughout the sound. Common mistakes are spitting the sound. Think. I've seen Vietnamese put their tongue between their teeth. This. And then at the end, again, these are very unnatural. You never actually use your tongue and your mouth in this way. And it's going to take time to practice and to get this right. All right, one more time. Word pair number one. Think. This. All right, let's continue. Word pair number two. Thin. Thin. And now the voice sound. Then. Then. Both words, although similar in pronunciation, should be differ in the voice versus the unvoiced sound. All right, word pair number three. Thanks. Again, I want you to really draw out that TH. Thanks. And now the voiced. These. These. All right, word pair number 4. 3. 3. Now this one is going to be a little bit more difficult because the R sound after the TH sound does require a bit more of a voice and a little bit more of a harsh sound. We'll get into consonant clusters a bit later. Consonant clusters are going to be a bit of a challenge for you, not because the sounds are difficult, but because in English we smoothly transition from one consonant to the other. So it isn't three. Okay, so even if you're making the TH sound, you can still not properly pronounce the word. You need to just practice smoothly transitioning from the TH to the R. 3. Okay, now the voiced. The. Now, some people will ask, sometimes it's pronounced the. That is another common English thing that happens called a schwa that we'll get into a bit later in the series. But for now, it's probably best to try to pronounce it the with the long E sound. All right. Now then, number 5 can be a bit tough. This is the TH at the end. There's also the BR sound, which can be difficult, but let's give it a shot. Breath. Breath. The TH is a continuing sound, meaning it isn't cut off at the end. Unlike other sounds in English, like the K sound, or the T sound, the B, the D, these are typically cut off at the end. The TH can be continued. And you should practice continuing that sound at the end. They're just continued until you just get quieter and quieter until the sound ends. Okay? You don't need to cut them off. Okay? Now then, the voiced. Breathe. Breathe. Okay? That one can be a bit difficult. There's a number of elements of pronouncing those two minimal pairs that are challenging. But let's move on to number 6. Thick. Thick. Again, really lengthen out that initial TH sound. The K is a hard stopped sound, but you can really lengthen both the TH and the I if you'd like to. Thick. And now the voiced. This. I realize we did this before, but this is a very common word and it helps to pronounce it as much as we can. Again, this. All right? Now then, word number 7. It has a silent E on the end, which we'll talk about a bit later in the series as well. It's not pronounced, but it does impact the pronunciation of the rest of the word. But let's just focus on the TH for now. So first, number 7, theme. So a long E and an M. Theme. Okay? And now the voiced pair, them. Them. Okay, let's try number 8. This has a GH cluster in it, and the OU cluster can be a bit of a challenge. The GH cluster, for now, you could just consider that it's silent. It does affect the pronunciation of the word, but really it's just a hard T at the end. So the word is pronounced thought. We really want to get the T on the end. Thought. Okay? Now then, the voiced is a very similar word, as you'll see, but no T on the end. So, again, the GH is mostly silent. So, though. though. Okay, now for pair number 9, the unvoiced. Thorn, thorn. You'll notice how the N is a continuing sound. It trails off. It doesn't stop abruptly at the end. Unlike the second word in the pair, that. That. Okay? It's important, again, to get the T on the end. Now then, pair number 10. Thread. Thread. Again, the TR combination is going to be challenging for you. We'll work on these consonant clusters and clustered sounds a bit later. But for now, let's just focus on the TH. Thread. And then the voiced. They. They. Okay? And number 11. The B is mostly silent. It can, in different dialects or different pronunciations, it can be pronounced a bit differently. But in U.S. English, you can mostly consider the B generally in the MB combinations to be silent. So to pronounce this word, we say thumb, thumb. And the second word is the voiced part of the pair, thus. Really concentrate on making sure you get the S on the end. Thus. One common challenge for Vietnamese speakers is dropping S's on words that have them and adding S's on words that don't have them. This can cause issues, again, a bit grammarly, but can cause issues with subject-verb agreement, and just makes you sound unnatural. So really concentrate on putting the S's on the ends of words. So one more time. Thus. Okay, word number 12. This is the unvoiced pair, a part of the pair. Thigh. Again, the GH is mostly silent here. Thigh. But it does affect the pronunciation. Again, I'm not teaching you a lot of spelling and grammar, but it is a silent pair, but it does make the I a long I. So it does indicate the I is a long I sound. So, thigh. And now the voiced. There. There. All right. Now on to pair 13. These are words that have more words that have the TH sound at the end. So this can be a bit of a challenge. Again, or the second word in pair number 13 has it in the middle. Again, practice making these sounds longer, particularly at the end. Don't cut them off and don't spit them. That's another common challenge here. So let's try word pair number 13. Faith. Faith. Okay, now the voiced part of that. Father. Father. We'll work on our F and V sounds soon in another lesson. But for now, focus on the TH sound. All right? Word pair number 14. Path. Path. And then a TH sound at the beginning. Than. Than. All right. Now then for the final word pair. Okay? So word pair number 15. Worth. Worth. And the last one in the pair, with, which is an unvoiced sound. So a bit out of place, but it gives you more practice with the ending sound and the unvoiced th. With. All right. Next, we'll work on our practice sentences. Okay. Now let's work on the sentence practice. And I would encourage you to pause the video or the podcast after the sentences if you want to practice. I'll repeat them at least twice, and we can work on them that way. Again, as we did with the minimal pairs, work on lengthening the sounds, especially the TH sounds. This again will just help you practice by overemphasizing you're working and retraining your muscles, your mouth, your tongue, in how to make these sounds. And it's like training for any type of athletic or muscle-based activity. You've got muscle memory, and it's going to take time to just work your muscles and your brain and your tongue and your mouth to be able to do these, because most of you have never actually used, again, your mouth and your tongue in these ways. So, all right, number one, again, long, slow. It's not about how fast, it's about how well you're understood, which has to do with how well you pronounce. So, I think this is the best path. All right, see how long that was. Now let's one more time. I think this is the best path. Okay? Number two, they thought this path was thick with thorns. Okay? Key part here, make sure you get the ends of the words, especially thorns and thought. Make sure you don't swallow the sounds at the ends of those words. So again, long, slow, overemphasize the sounds. Okay? Number three, my brother will bathe and brush his teeth at 3. It's a pretty good tongue twister. My brother will bathe and brush his teeth at 3. Now this one has an SH, and we'll get more into the S and SH sounds next. Okay? Number 4. She thought that the math test was this Thursday. One more time. Number 4. She thought that the math test was this Thursday. Long and slow, and exaggerate the sounds. Okay, number 5. The thumb on my right hand is thicker than my left. One more time. Number 5. The thumb on my right hand is thicker than my left. Again, ending sounds very important. So we will emphasize those. We'll have a lesson on ending sounds, focused on ending sounds a bit later in the series. All right, number 6. I think those clothes look thinner than these ones. Something you'll notice, S's often sound like Z's. Again, we'll cover this a bit later. But just if you're wondering why they sound different, they do sound different sometimes. Number 6. I think those clothes look thinner than these ones. So clothes is potentially difficult, going to be difficult because of the TH in the middle and the quick transition between the O and the Z sound. We'll work on middle consonant clusters and middle sounds a bit later. Don't be too flustered on that. English speakers will also often shorten that. That's something else that we'll cover, is linking and shortening, which we'll cover from the perspective of you need to know when you hear an English speaker do it. I don't really recommend, if you're still working on getting the basics of pronunciation or even intermediate level pronunciation, really those types of things I would expect to happen at advanced and beyond. But you do need to be aware of that English speakers do shorten. We sometimes change the sounds, especially vowels, sometimes consonants, when we speak faster. But that's something to be aware of. Clothes is one of those that we change a bit. So don't be too flustered if sounding that out slowly is difficult, because it's not easy for me as an native English speaker. All right. Number 7. Thus, they thanked the team for their thoughtful ideas. Now, one thing you'll notice here, thanked, the ED can sometimes sound like a final T sound, at least in US English. So if you're hearing a T there, your ears are correct. It is a bit different. One more time, number 7. Thus, they thanked the team for their thoughtful ideas. All right? And now the final sentence. I thought this theme would be easy. One more time. Number 8. I thought this theme would be easy. Now watch for the voiced and the unvoiced sound, TH sounds in number 8. All right, that's it for the TH sounds. I hope you've enjoyed this. I know it can be tough. Sometimes it can be frustrating. I suggest you to step back, listen to yourself, laugh at yourself. We shouldn't take ourselves too seriously. Sometimes it's good to step back and laugh at ourselves. And remember,
The whole point of doing this is to enjoy and to have a bit of fun. So we'll be working on the S and the SH sounds next. I look forward to seeing you. Remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment. We'd really appreciate hearing your thoughts, especially if you enjoyed the content. Thank you.